Romance. So many times we think about romance. We want more romance in our lives. We want to have a romantic relationship. We want the people that we're in relationship with to be more romantic. Oftentimes, romance it's a very important topic for us. And think about all the romantic movies, the romantic books, the romantic stories that we have. Romance. Many of us do want romance and think it's very, very important, but romance isn't quite everything we hoped it would be. But let's look at that a little bit more, because usually in romantic movies, everything works out. People live happily ever after. Everyone just communicates beautifully. Things are smooth. And by the end of the movie, everything works out and they live happily ever after. But that's not exactly real life. And let's look at this myth of romance, because wanting this kind of romance is one of the things that keeps us from having the fulfilling, satisfying relationships that we all desire deep in our hearts. So let's look at this. Let's just look at what romance means. The dictionary describes romance as a love affair. Great, I like a love affair, but a love affair that's especially brief and intense. A short, intense love affair. I think I'd rather have something long-lasting. It also describes romance as sexual love, especially when the other person is idealized or is not really real. So the definitions of romance are a brief love affair that doesn't last, or a sexual relationship that's a fantasy. Well, that is not the foundation for a great, satisfying, fulfilling relationship. And most of us think that that's really what we want. I mean, think about the romantic stories and think about the romantic movies and even the fairy tales like Cinderella. This poor Cinderella, she has to clean and cook and do all the heavy work, and she just yearns so deeply to go to the ball and to meet her prince. And those are the kinds of stories we think about, being saved by a handsome prince who comes and takes care of us. As a woman or a man might think about being that kind of prince who saves the woman and takes care of the damsel in distress. And as we look at it, what the research shows that over 78% of us have Cinderella-type fantasies in our concepts of love. We think that's how love is supposed to be. And what the research has shown, Lockhart's research shows that those of us who have those elements of those romantic stories in our minds and our hearts, we're much more likely to experience disillusionment and devastation and angst in our relationships than the other people who have let go of that fantasy. So letting go of this fantasy is pretty important for us in order to have satisfying relationships. So let's look at it. So we have these definitions of romance: a brief, intense love affair, or sexual love, especially when the other person or the relationship is idealized and not real. Doesn't sound so great, this brief, fake love affair. I personally, again, would like one that lasts and isn't just brief and is with a real person. So let's look at, there is though a third definition of romance, and let's look at that for a moment. That definition is romance as an exciting adventure with the potential that can actually help us have heroic achievement. Think about that. An exciting adventure with the potential for heroic achievement. Now that definition of romance might be one that could lead us somewhere and really help us to have the kind of relationships we really care for deep in our heart. So let's look at that, because it is heroic to have a real relationship. It's not just fantasies and flowers and music and chocolate. It's something else, because it really takes courage. Really, we need courage to be ourselves, to be real, not fake and idealized, to be present, to be authentic, and really take the heroic step of being ourselves really with another person. Being willing to share our hopes and our dreams, our fears, even our judgments, to let someone else be able to see us for who we really are, not how we want ourselves to be seen all the time. You know, the research shows that dating couples, 100% of people who are dating lie. They tell lies when they're beginning a relationship. They cover up things, they exaggerate things, they leave out some things they don't want someone to know. We're so busy trying to impress someone that we don't really let them know us, and we don't get to know them. We're trying to get them to like us rather than being ourselves, which is really the foundation for a great relationship. So that's really where it takes more courage. That's where it really takes more of our being willing to be more revealed and to be able to tell the truth, to share our gifts and our weaknesses, our joys and our fears. You know, it's easy to buy chocolates and go out to dinner and light candles and go dancing. It's easy to make a reservation for dinner, but it's much harder to share the reservations and the thoughts that we have about revealing who we really are. It's much harder to reveal our deeper truths, the things that we really feel, the things that we are vulnerable about, the things that are more tender for us. But yet that's where intimacy begins. It's easy to maybe ask someone to go to a movie with you. It's harder to ask someone to reveal themselves and be themselves. It's harder to ask someone to see you as you really are, and what you really are about, what you really think, what you really, really feel. So in order for us to have that exciting adventure with the potential for heroic achievement, we need to have a different definition of what makes for a great relationship. And yeah, we can have some romance, but we need the romance that leads to this heroic achievement. And let's look at that. It's very different than the fairy tales and the romantic movies that we see. It means that people fight. It means that people cry together. It means that we share things that are tender for ourselves, that we're willing to be real instead of just nice. We can let someone see our imperfections rather than trying to be perfect all the time. And really, a real relationship, unlike the romantic movies, has real relationship room for the tough times. They're not nice, they're real. Those can be very different. And rather than happily ever after, what leads to more satisfaction is deeply ever after, where we're willing to go very deep inside ourselves and reveal more and share more. So what we need to do is to really wake up, I think, and learn and grow in our relationships rather than live in this fantasy of this idealized romance. To create a foundation of learning and growing in our own lives and learning and growing with other people. We can start that with our friends, or if we are in a relationship, to make the purpose of a relationship to learn about ourselves, to grow, to learn about the people that we're with and grow together, and to be willing to have encounters and conflict and fights and work them out. Learn the tools of effective conflict. So not resolution so much, but conflict, learning and growing from conflict, not just making the conflict go away, but understanding what's underneath that. And really embracing the idea that with hard work, your relationship can evolve and it can grow and it can deepen even if you have difficult situations. Maybe things seem a little bit less passionate up front when we look at it this way, but you're going to have much longer and more satisfying relationships over time. Because deeper connection, deeper truth, deeper intimacy really is what meets our deeper needs, much more than chocolate and roses and dancing and music, although certainly you can have those as well. So be aware of that myth of romance. Think about that. Catch yourself. Be more aware of what it really takes to be in relationship, and really bust those beliefs and really let yourself say to yourself, romance isn't all there is. There's more to this than that. You know, if you think you kind of believe that romantic movie of the knight in shining armor or Mr. Right or the perfect woman coming and sweeping you off your feet, maybe you need to let that one go. And that's not quite it. Name the fantasies that you might be having and become more of a critical thinker. What does it really take to have a great relationship? And take responsibility for learning that and pursuing that. We have many, many ways to support you with that, and in our book, The Heart of the Fight, we'll share those skills with you. But first off, just be aware that you may be under the influence of the myth of romance, and it may be leading you to unsatisfying relationships rather than the heroic adventure and the heroic achievement that deep intimacy can provide for you. So my wish for you is you be the hero of your own life and the hero of your own relationships. And let's give that third definition of romance a way to live in our lives. Let's not live in the fantasy, let's live in the reality that creates intimacy and depth with one another.